Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Today is a tribute. It's a special show. I had a wonderful guest, Richard Rowland, on my show in the very beginning, when I was just starting out almost 2 years ago. Richard Rowland, as I just said, he was on 6/25/2021, and I'm just going to be real. None of this is scripted here. I want the show to be a tribute to him, to play his show, to mention his work. And he passed away December of 2022. Oh, my heart. He was a love warrior and a lover of animals, a communicator of animals, and cancer got him. And being a cancer survivor myself, I know how hard the journey is, and as much as I'm going to miss him, and I know his wife Jennifer is going to miss him, and all of the people in our community are going to miss him. I'm glad for him not to live with treatments and to have to go through the stuff that we do when we have cancer. So anyway, I want to, we'll talk about it in the show. It's in the show. But he is the author of 2 books, and three is coming out. By the time this show comes out, the show will be played on the 3rd. When it comes out, he will have another book released. His wife had all the work and put it together with producers, so a 3rd book will come out in just about a week or so. And his first one is Unspoken Messages, and it's a wonderful story with someone like him facing the end of life, and him communicating with animals as he did his entire life. And his second book is A Glimpse Behind the Veil, just the story of us humans and our animals and how special they are. He had an amazing gift of communicating with everyone, humans and animals alike. And another thing that is very cool, his wife was able to put the second book, the one I just mentioned, A Glimpse Behind the Veil, into an Audible book, which is out right now that you can purchase on Audible. So without further ado, here's the show that he and I did on 6/25/21 that I'm very proud of. Even in the beginning of my journey, he made it a great show just because of his wonderful, loving, beautiful energy. Enjoy the show, everyone, and we'll see you next week. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome to my show, Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. For those of you that are new, my show is about hope. I firmly believe with all my heart that we can get back up from anything. Emotions. Myself and my guests are all overcomers. They have all overcome. They have gone through huge, tremendous things. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest, Richard Rowland. I'm sorry, and this gets to me every time. Thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself while I get myself together.
Martha, it's such a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Rowland. I don't know how far you want me to go with an introduction.
Oh, please just introduce your wonderful self.
I'm a two-tour veteran of the Vietnam War. I'm a 28-year retired veteran of law enforcement, retiring from the state police in Kentucky as a sergeant after 28 years in law enforcement. I owned my own business for 20 years. So started a boarding and training facility for horses in the central area of Kentucky, and did that successfully for a while. Mm-hmm. And then got a curveball that I couldn't hit. So, life changed.
Yes.
I currently live in Maine. Part of the year, I travel back and forth between Kentucky and Maine. My son's still down there. We came up here to take care of my wife's folks. So that's the quick.
That's the quick intro. Okay. So, in your book and in our conversations, but in our book, in our conversations, but unspoken messages, you put in your book about being changed after your diagnosis from a hard-headed, seeing black and white person and without the cancer diagnosis, maybe your words continue to muddle through life. I have a really hard time with that. You to me are just the epitome of patience, calm, serenity, spiritual. At what point from your diagnosis and into your journey did you become calm, peaceful, not seeing everything in black and white?
It was quite a transition. I remember vividly, probably the very point that happened. My life up to that point was pretty much black and white. It was my ideology was science-based. Things were what they were, and there wasn't anything in between. It was black, white, and there was no gray area. And then after the diagnosis, and before we'll get into some of the things that started changing, but I remember I was on my knees in the house by myself. Nobody else was there. I was crying. I was screaming at the universe. Now, I didn't have a religious upbringing, so I didn't have that kind of training early in life. So my screaming was at the universe, the unfairness of everything.
Yep.
You know, my life up to that point was pretty much going about as good as a life could go. And here all of a sudden, you know, I'm married to the love of my life. I have a son who at that time was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And how do you tell people? How do you tell people what's going on? So in the case of my son, I elected not to. But anyway, getting back to that day, on my knees in my bedroom, crying, screaming at the unfairness of everything.
Right.
And out of left field, it was almost as if I could have heard the words. I'd never heard the words before, but it was as if I heard the words, things are not as they seem. And it's like, it was like turning off a tap. It was like the crying and the screaming stopped. And I went, what the hell was that? What was that?
Right.
That's not me. That's not my words. Where did that come from? Where did that thought, what's going on?
Right.
And shortly after that, life really started changing. It was as if the universe just opened up and said, "Here, we have some things we want to show you, because you're not looking at this exactly right."
Right.
Animals were the catalyst. Of course, I'm surrounded by animals. We're running 20, 25 horses a month. We have a couple of dogs. We have, gosh, I've lost track of how many cats we had. Barn cats, farm dogs.
Yeah.
So you're surrounded, and you're surrounded with wildlife too. Things started happening to me completely outside science. You can't explain what this is.
Yeah.
This, you know, I'm sitting here in my old mind going, this can't happen. This simply can't happen.
Right.
But it did. And the things that I witnessed, and as I said, with animals as the catalyst, just beyond bizarre.
Right.
And it really woke me up. Had it just been one thing, maybe it wouldn't have happened the way that it did, but it was almost rapid fire. Here, look at this. Here, you're done looking at that. We want you to look at this.
Right.
And then you start looking at things differently. And you see the things that you didn't realize before.
Right. You know, isn't it like, we talk about my coaching community sometimes, some of us, like me, need a ton of bricks dropped over our heads to really like, okay, one more kick. Okay, another one, boom, you know, until you finally get it. I am one of those too. Yeah. And I guess you were as well. We needed those kicks.
Yeah, we did. And
yeah.
You know, in Unspoken Messages, the first book that I wrote, we'll get into that a little bit, but the first story in that book, the front of the book, there's 10 things that happened to me. And it's still to this day, I get goosebumps when I think about what happened.
Right.
And I wasn't alone. There were other people there. There were other people that witnessed this too. So they're kind of lucky because I was in school. It was if the universe is saying, okay, you're in school, you're in class, I want you to see this. But the other people got to see it too. So, and it was life-changing. It was life-changing. And then you have to sit down and write that stuff down. Right. I think the onus of a writer is to keep the story alive. And I didn't, these stories were too important to me. I wanted to keep them alive. So I started out writing them down. The who, what, why, where, when, all of that.
Yeah.
And I let people read them. And the encouragement that I got encouraged me to continue on and keep telling the story, keep the story alive. So that's how the first book came to be.
Wow.
It was very cathartic.
Right. You know, there's that point in your book too, Awakening. You know, you talk about Sigmund Freud and how when you quote, the quote, I believe, when we attempt to imagine death, we perceive ourselves as spectators. That really resonated with me, because I remember when I was diagnosed, I completely tuned out. I let my husband get all the, how big the tumor was. I didn't want to look at the pictures. I didn't want to see any of it.
Mhm.
He just took care of that. And I just completely tuned out, thinking, oh, geez, okay, I've only been really, newly remarried, my second marriage, for less than a year. My mom just died from dementia 2 months ago. Both my brother and sister have had cancer. They've both passed away, but well, they hadn't at that time, but that's a different story. It was just like, I could not believe that the third kid of my parents, cancer, and it never really been in our family before that,
Yeah.
So I just tuned out. But I know that the very next day, I'm like, you know what? You've been meaning to do more with your life. Paralegal is great. Being a paralegal is fine, but that's not serving the way you want to serve. The next day, got my butt on the treadmill and just started walking, and all these like messages started coming to me. So it sounds like it was kind of the same for you. Like you got the, we have things we're going to show you. Things are not as they seem. These things that came to you. I know that changed me as well. I'm not sure I would have gone as far had those messages not come to me. Like, get up, get on there. If you're even going at a speed of barely 2, do it. And
Right.
write whatever comes to your heart that could help somebody. Yeah.
I think that was the intent behind the first book. People ask me how many books I've sold, or is it a bestseller? You really get some funny questions sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to reach that one person. I think I needed to tell the story, but I needed to reach that one person that needed to read it. And I've done that many times over. I get letters, I get emails, I get texts from people who have read it, who have enjoyed it, who the book has changed the way they look at things.
Right.
And that was the intent. This is not about making money. Money's got very little to do with it. It's got to do with helping people.
Absolutely.
And on your intro, you mentioned a word, and I'm going to show you something. I can get to it. Can you see that? Make it out. Let's see. Get up here.
Hope. Yes.
You see how
It's
curled
everything.
and faded and old looking this is?
Yeah.
That's because I wrote this word when I was diagnosed on this piece of paper when I was diagnosed, and stuck it to, this is its third computer now. It's been on, because hope was stolen.
Yeah.
In the beginning. When you have 2 doctors that tell you you have 3 years to live. There's very little we can do for you. We'll make you comfortable. To a third doctor whose only words were, you need to get your affairs in order.
Right.
It was as if they were repeating. And it really was. It was almost verbatim. The way the message was delivered. And it kind of makes you wonder, do you have something that you go by when you're delivering this? Do people tell you what to say?
Absolutely. And we're going to take a break for a commercial in just a moment, but I would like to go into that because I remember one point where my former mother-in-law, was diagnosed, and how the doctor on a Friday night calls her up and said, there is absolutely no hope for you. Absolutely nothing we can do for you. You're going to die, such and such. Of course, I'll know more over the weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. Wow. How do you think she spent her weekend?
Yeah, I know exactly how she spent it.
Yep. So we will talk more about that when we come back to Transformation with Martine. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Richard Rowland. And Richard, I forgot before we broke for a commercial, where can people find you and your books? Both.
Well, as I said, I'm in Maine, but I'm active on social media. So I try to stay active on Facebook under my name. I also stay active on Instagram, and a few other things. I write a blog. I don't like the word blog. I write stories.
Awesome.
Blog's
That's
a
good.
little too impersonal for me. I love stories because it's such a
Okay.
warm word. But at richarddrowlandbooks.com, and there are a lot of stories there to read. So I'm easy to find. The books are available anywhere retail books. I mean, Amazon obviously always sells the most, but
Right.
Barnes and Noble, BAM, there's like 14 different regional bookstores that sell.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage all of you to pick up his books. The one I've read completely is Unspoken Messages. It is fabulous. I even got my little doggy ears of things that I want to remember. And then he also, his newest one is A Glimpse Behind the Veil, which I haven't gotten into as much lately. I wanted to complete and talk about unspoken messages on this podcast. So when we left for break, we were talking about hope and how our doctors could either breathe life into us or not. My mother-in-law had a terrible time. I was extremely fortunate. My sister and brother, not as good as well. And Richard, what was your experience? Because I know you talk about, doctors that encourage you to be hopeful. And then you being a partner in your health, you've got to be an advocate for you. You can't just put it into their hands.
No, you can't. You have, well, I probably get rude in some places because I don't like people telling me what they don't know.
Right.
And when you start off telling somebody that they have 3 years to live, yeah, you don't really know that. I don't have an expiration date.
Yes.
I don't have a tag behind my neck that tells you when I'm not going to be here any longer.
Yes.
So it was so frustrating in the beginning to have 2 different doctors tell me the same thing, almost verbatim, and then a third, even worse, just telling me to get my affairs in order. It made me angry. And the anger was exactly what I needed at the time. I needed that. I needed to let go of a lot of things, but the anger actually helped, and it stayed around quite a while, because I don't believe you should be given unsolicited prognoses about life and death. If you're going to, I think it needs to be fueled also with the possibilities of it not ending that way. Because when I started doing my research on myeloma, which is the cancer that I'm diagnosed with, I found people that were living much longer than 3 years.
Right.
I found people, after a lot of work, I found people that were living 17 and 18 years. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute. They just told me that I was going to die in 3 years. And I was able to contact some of these people who are still living today, still. And I see an unsolicited prognosis as a seed that they are planting, and that your fear is going to tend. And how many people, Martine, in your life have you known that were told they had 6 months to live, who died in 6 months, or 1 year, or 6 weeks? The seed's planted, and if you tend that seed, that's going to happen. That's what's going to take place. And maybe part of it was, I want to prove you wrong. I don't know, but I'm sure glad that I did, because I've accomplished a lot in these last 13 years.
Right. Yeah, you've got to be that advocate, and the people in your life. I'm sure Jennifer was right there advocating with you. I know for my mother-in-law, I'm a fierce advocate. There's no doubt about it, for people I love and my clients and everything else. But I was there like, don't you do that to her. Don't, don't take that from her. And like you're saying, you're right, because she lasted about 6 months until she was almost in we had hospice, and there was actually a point where I think she was hanging on, waiting for maybe the next chemo or whatever it was. But I remember my sister-in-law saying, Mom, it's okay. if you're ready to go, it's okay. And it wasn't long really before that happened, but she was just to that point now where she just really couldn't do it. So we've got to advocate for our people. We got to advocate for ourselves. And like you're saying in your book as well, is that get another diagnosis, get it, or not another diagnosis, another opinion.
Right.
2, 3, 4, whatever it takes for you to get what you need.
You know, unless when you're going to deliver an unsolicited prognosis and tell somebody something like that, something should go off in your head at some point in time, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
No,
You don't know what research is going
Mm-mm.
to prove tomorrow. There may
Mhm.
be a cure for this particular cancer next week.
Yeah,
Don't be telling people they're going to die.
right.
Show them hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think if you keep hope and you tend hope, it becomes belief, and then it becomes faith. And with
Yep.
faith, there's nothing that's impossible. Nothing.
Right. There's actually a popular, I can't think of his name at the moment, but his mom was diagnosed with stage 4 and she refused to believe it. And she put her pictures all over healthy her, all over the place, and just looked at that and just said, God is going to heal me. That is not going to be. And she's still alive today. And that was years ago. And I think definitely, I mean, when our time is going to come, it's going to come. However, there is no reason that we can't put that belief into us. And if we are meant to be here, if we do have more time to serve or whatever it is, we're going to make it. It doesn't matter what they say.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still have a lot to do. If I have a bucket list, I'm really not that familiar with it, but I'm one of those people that if I do something on the bucket list, I'm going to add something else to the bottom of the list.
Right.
Now, I'm going to continue to have things to do, because in the research, in the beginning, all of the books that I read about success when it comes to dealing with a life-ending diagnosis, it's where you put your mind. There's just all kinds of things you can do by staying positive.
Absolutely.
And I believe once you reach the point of absolute belief in something, talking absolute belief, not an atom of doubt.
Yes.
Then that's what's going to happen. The universe is going to make sure that's what happens because you believe it. There's no doubt.
The universe conspires with us. Absolutely, right?
Every day. You have to be careful what you say because it's listening.
I know. That means talking positive to ourselves too, because our bodies, our mind, our soul, there is listening.
Right.
So I want to give everybody an opportunity, as we had talked about this before, to call in and ask you questions. Plus, we had talked about a book to give away to the first and third caller.
Sure.
I think we had talked about, okay, sounds good. Okay, so anybody wants to call in, the number is 800-930-2819. And you can call in and ask us any questions that you like. And we have an awesome book giveaway. And when we come back, we are going to talk about, well, I'd like to talk about animals for one, and how they have an innate natural ability to sense things about us.
Right.
And how they are absolutely intuitive. And this is not something I knew of until I got my little dog. My my mom was of the type, which sounds so kind of funny now, that really people and animals should be separate. They should be outside, not inside with us. So I wasn't allowed as a kid. But then when my children wanted, I want to say it was 2008. So my son was probably about 3. No. Yeah, well, yeah, 3, something like that. And all 3 wanted a dog. And I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted myself, and I have learned so much, even just about myself and the unconditional love and the intuitiveness that they have. So I'd love to dive into that, and also about psychics and communication and how much more in the universe there really is than we are, well, privy to, unless we open up that awareness.
Right. Sounds like some good things to talk about.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we will see you back real soon. We are all about hope, and we are talking about hope and survivorship of cancer, of getting through hard times. And we want to invite you all again to call in. Anybody that wants to ask a question of either one of us, the number is 800-930-2819. And Richard is giving away 2 of his books. So please call first and third caller, get a copy of his books, one each of his book. And when we took a break, we were talking about animals and their ability to sense us. And Richard, you have been, I mean, I've only had a dog in my life. So you have been around animals of all kinds. And it sounds like horses seem to have a particular, I've always been drawn to them, awareness of humans and connection. And you and I both believe in psychic abilities, and that other people, and as well as us, if we're open, have the ability to get more from the universe and even from our own souls, more out there. So tell me about horses and the connection you have to start, like how, or other animals, and how they have messages for all of us.
You know, it's funny. I was raised one way with one belief as
Mhm.
far as animals are concerned. And then that all changed when this came about. And I started
Mhm.
with the first story in the first book is where my view of the animal kingdom started changing.
Mhm.
I was seeing things that just simply can't be explained.
Right.
There's an intelligence here, and
Mhm.
and when that happened, I started looking at all animals different. It was more like a study. It was more like an observation, a new one
Mhm.
of what they're doing. And you know, the sad thing is, we go through life thinking animals are dumb or they're smart in their particular way.
Right.
They have depth of soul just like we have.
Mhm.
They communicate just like we do. They're not speaking English to us, so
Yeah.
to us, they don't communicate. Yes, they
Mhm.
do. They do. They do it with their eyes. They do it with their body motion. They do it in so
Yeah.
many different ways.
Right.
And geez, the gifts that I've received from the animal kingdom, from being able to just observe and watch them
Mhm.
communicate. Um, it's just, it was in the beginning, it was awing, and
Mhm.
it got, when you start tuning into it where you can see it like I do,
Right.
it becomes more the norm. You
Right.
communicate back and forth. You let them know that you understand,
Right.
and it's
Hmm.
just it's all crazy. And you know, I started thinking, okay, go back to the first story in the first book. And I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person that had experienced anything even remotely like that.
Mhm.
No, no, after the book came out, I start getting emails and calls
Mhm.
from people who had like experiences.
Right.
One of them, Dr. Eldon Taylor, who's become such a good friend, he's a best-selling author, had
Mhm.
had almost a mirror experience to that, and wrote about it in a book that I
Wow.
hadn't read yet. So,
Wow.
Choices and Illusions, I got to go back and read the book and read his experience.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I found out that I wasn't alone. There were a lot of people that had these, and that's what gave birth to the second book. That people getting in touch with me, going, "Hey, listen to what happened to me," and
Mhm.
they all became stories, which became another book.
Oh, that's so cool. There's I thought it was particularly called to me in Unspoken Messages was, I cannot think of her name, the one horse you had. She ended up moving, I think, to Italy.
Yeah, that would have been who we call Peanut.
Yeah, Peanut, that's right. That
Right.
she sounded extraordinary.
It's
Like,
tremendous. That was such an experience because
ah,
I've I've been around horses. I've raised horses.
mhm,
I know what to
mhm.
expect from horses, especially orphan horses.
Yeah, yeah.
And geez, what an experience that was. I mean, just in awe of. I am so lucky to have gotten to see this. And without a cancer diagnosis, I don't think
Yeah.
any of this would have happened. I don't think I would have seen this.
Okay, so you wouldn't have saw exactly what happened Do you have time? Do we have time to give like a brief little bit about that? Or it's a cool story. I mean, I know people can read it in the book and maybe that's what we should suggest, but it's such a
Her
cool.
particular,
Yeah,
Peanut,
yeah.
uh, it's a related story in the book. The first chapter in the book is about her dam, Buffy, who
Yes,
ended up
yes.
passing away.
Mhm.
Quite a moving story.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up was about Peanut and her life,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I have been around orphan horses before,
Mhm.
and she was, I think she was maybe 5, 6 weeks old when this happened,
Mhm.
and so she was still, she wasn't weaned. She wasn't even close to being weaned. But
Mhm.
we transitioned her, and we became the mother. But you don't
Right.
want to become the mother.
Right. Right.
You want her to grow up as a horse, because it's fine when they're little, but when
Mhm.
they get big, they're big,
Right.
and they have to know their place, their spot.
Mhm. Right.
And
Right.
she knew everything. She knew everything. She, at
It
6 weeks
sure
old,
seemed
she
like it.
had never been haltered. She stood to have a halter put on her.
Mhm.
She moved with cues from the lead line to lead back.
Mhm.
She she picked her feet up. All the things that I have to teach a horse to do,
Right.
picking their feet up so we can trim them and keep them in good shape,
Mhm.
putting fly spray on them to keep the flies from being so bad.
Right.
All of these things that initially horses
Mm.
don't have a really good reaction to those things.
Right.
You have to break them to that slowly. That wasn't the case with this horse. She
Mhm.
took to everything like she already knew it.
Mhm.
And it was like I said in the first story, it was, to experience that, it was as if the mother imparted some wisdom to the
Mhm.
foal
Right.
just before expiring. There was a
Mhm.
communication. You could see it, you could hear it, you
Right.
knew something was taking place. And from
Yeah.
that day forward, this horse was, she took to everything.
Uh-huh.
And she was aborted. The dam was a boarded horse, and
Mhm.
so Peanut was sold
Mhm.
to a lady who to this day is a friend of mine in Michigan. I
Right.
didn't meet her until all of this happened, and excuse me. She in turn sold the horse to some people in Italy,
Yeah.
and I did get a picture of her with her first foal
Mhm.
after she went to Italy.
Yeah.
So it was, the whole experience was just such an eye-opening thing, because
Mhm.
I know what happened. I
Right.
was I was there. I saw it. There
Mhm.
are people that won't believe what happened because they
Right.
didn't, but it did. I was
Well, I
there.
encourage everybody to read it because it's amazing. And it's like I had told you too, I had told you that there's a lot of good like parenting advice in there at the same time, you know? We
Yeah,
have to let, just like you had to let Peanut be a horse, basically, we have to let our kids go as well.
right.
You know, we want to save and protect and everything, and we can't
Yeah,
because we are here on this earth, you know, to learn lessons and glean all the blessings out of the lessons is something I always like to say. And we can't take those things as much as we want to protect, as much as we want to guide. We can guide, but we can't protect our children or even our animals from everything, right?
right. No, we can't.
Yeah, you even had to let a horse be a horse. And I'm sure with your son, Matt, same thing.
Yep.
You had to let him be a man, grow up to be a man and
Yep.
not every little, yeah.
So this horse, even my friend in Michigan who purchased her and then resold her,
Mm-hmm.
put her under saddle.
Uh-huh.
So the first time she had a saddle on her, she never acted up. The
Right.
first time she had a person on her back, just another day,
Wow.
never
It's
ever
amazing.
once acted up. The first time she loaded on a horse trailer, very first time,
Mm-hmm.
walked right on the horse trailer, no fear, no nothing.
Right.
Something took place the night that her mother died. Something. And that ended up being the easiest foal I've ever raised.
Right. Wow. Wow. Do you think, like, I know that well, horses will kind of nuzzle to you if you allow it. I haven't had a lot of experience. Do you think it was just like, do they have a language? I don't know. Dogs kind of bark, so maybe they're communicating that way. Do horses do the same, or they just is just more of a heart to heart, soul to soul?
Horse communication is mainly through body language,
Okay.
through their eyes and through body
Yeah.
language. Do they
Yeah.
vocalize? Yes, they do some.
Mm-hmm.
Mares in particular have a kind of a rumbly little thing that they do only for their foals.
Mm-hmm.
That I really like that when I get to hear it. But yeah, they have communications that you can hear, but the biggest part of their communications is body language,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be with you too. And it's like when I'm training a horse, when I used to train horses, I would look at particular places on their body.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. Allergy season is not close to being over.
I know.
Where was I? I'm sorry. I started
Oh,
coughing.
that's okay. And actually, we should probably take a break. But we were talking about horses, and the communication is more, it's not like a bark of a dog, but it's more of a body language kind of thing.
I can move a horse forward by looking at the back part of its shoulder.
Oh, okay.
It knows where I'm looking. It
Mm-hmm.
knows where my eyes are focusing, and it knows what the communication means.
Ah,
And
yes.
when I'm working with a horse and I can see them drop their head almost to the ground, I can see them move their lips, I can see their tongue come out, licking
Yeah.
and chewing, I know what they're saying now. I didn't know that
Wow.
before. So
That
yeah,
is amazing.
they have a way of communicating with us.
That's amazing. All right. So we are going to take a break. And Richard, how about before we go again, where can everybody find you?
Facebook, Richard D. Rowland author, or I have a personal page with just my name.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, same thing.
Yes.
Twitter, I don't use that much, but I am there.
Okay. Okay.
So mostly if you do a search for my name, you're going to find me. I'm not hiding.
Right on. Well, that's good. Need to be visible if we want to be helping and serving others. And once again, our podcast, to call into our podcast to ask either of us questions is 800-930-2819. And we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Richard Rowland, and we've had a great conversation. I want to remind all of you that we have another book to give away, and the number is 800-930-2819. And we are going to come back and talk about, or for the final segment here of our show, we're going to talk about psychics, the abilities that others, including ourselves, if we are open to it, the abilities that we have to get more information from the universe, more information just from our souls itself. And in Richard's book, he talks about being curious of what more there was, especially since he already saw it from his experience with animals, from his diagnosis of myeloma. And he went to see a psychic that he was told was very reputable. Actually, this woman was told, or she had her tubes tied and actually had a baby 10 months later. So that's pretty phenomenal gift there. So Richard, what would you like to share? What has been your experience with psychics and the abilities in the world that is possible if we care to tune in?
It was unbelievable to me. My experience with a psychic, my first experience with a psychic, because you know that little science-based ideology kind of gets its claws in. It doesn't want to let go,
right?
And you don't. Sometimes you don't want to believe. But a very dear friend, I love her to death. She was one that told me about this particular psychic, and she had two kids, two boys. And had her tubes tied, didn't want any. And the psychic told her that she sees a little girl in her life. So, and she told her, she said, no, my tubes are tied. There's going to be no more in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she became pregnant and she had a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me about this lady, and it was really difficult to get an appointment to go see her.
Right.
And I did, and didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And in our conversation, she hit on things that you could not know. You
Right.
couldn't know this. You couldn't even research it and find it.
Right.
It was known to family only.
Right.
And I just couldn't believe it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she said that I can see that you've been sick, but you're getting well now.
Mm-hmm.
And she said at the end of the conversation, in order to shorten it up, because I could talk about her alone for an hour,
Uh-huh.
she said, I see you're going to write a book and it's going to help a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
I just burst out laughing. And I even told her, I said, well, you missed on that one. You hit on a lot today, but now that one, no, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years later, I mailed her a copy of the book.
Uh-huh.
And 6 years later, I sent her the copy of the second book, which she also told me I was going to write,
Yeah.
that I didn't know was going to happen. So for her to know some of the things that she knew, I say, for instance, I had a great uncle
Mm-hmm.
named Reuben, but I didn't know his name was Reuben. We always called him Ruby.
Uh-huh.
And she said, who is the man in your life named Reuben? No, Ruby. And why does he have that name? So I told her, and she said, he says that you have two things in your house that belong to him and to take care of them. And I started thinking, and I have his shaving mug,
Uh-huh.
and I have a 5-board oak bench that he made back in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And you can't know that.
Right. Right. Oh man.
I mean, I know it, but you have to remind me that I know it.
Right. Right. You know, I think that those things in itself brings hope to me.
Yeah.
You know, I have many psychic friends and they're extremely gifted, and I'm so grateful, even when because both my brother and sister have passed away. And my sister visits one of my friends, Jamie Hearn. She's a great psychic. And she visits her often and gives messages to me. And Jamie always shares those things with me. I find that amazing and fascinating, and gives me a lot of hope that my sister is great in another realm, wherever she
Yep.
happens to be.
Right.
And I just think it's cool. And I do remember another psychic friend of mine who said that, and I'm not sure what you believe or what you've been told too, that psychics can only see a little bit because of our free will, and we're always changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our minds and pivoting our paths and all this.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that they can only see a little bit, or like, what do you think on that?
I think to get to things that are specific,
Mm-hmm.
like they do, I think there's an ability there to see much deeper. I think maybe the more open that they are with what they do, maybe the more they can see.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm unsure, because I've only been to that one. Now,
Right.
I have been to some shows.
Uh-huh.
John Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's the blonde-headed lady. I'm sorry, I'm Teresa. And,
Yes, I'm familiar. Both.
you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
I've seen their shows, not just
Yeah.
on TV. I've actually gone to their shows.
Mm-hmm.
These are some pretty talented, convincing people.
No doubt.
When you see people absolutely sobbing,
Oh yeah.
they're not actors. This is
No.
not an actor. This is somebody that
No.
paid for a ticket just like I did.
Right.
There's more to this than we realize. And we get so caught up in the word coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in coincidence anymore.
Right. Me neither.
There's an intelligent design to all of this.
Yes.
And that does sort of goes back to the animal things. People take what they do as coincidental. It's not coincidental. It's
Right.
communication. It's intentional. It's trying to show you that they have the ability to communicate with you.
Yes. 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 So I would like to ask you in the final couple minutes that we have of the show, if someone were to come to you, say you're at your favorite coffee shop or somewhere, and they ask you about hope. For some reason, the conversation gets started. What would you say? What could you share to someone who has recently been diagnosed with cancer, or someone who's just been hurt? What would you say to them?
It's not odd that you mentioned that, but I mentor people.
That's what
I do that a lot. It's
Mhm.
not something that I charge for. It's something that I
Mhm.
enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing you could do with anybody is to get rid of the fear
Mhm.
first. The things that you read, the things that open you up
Mhm.
to believing something else. Books on near-death experiences.
Right.
There's so
Right.
many radical remissions. There's all kinds of miracles that
Right.
happen in this world. And if you start showing people this, and if you can lessen that fear and get their
Mhm.
focus away from fear, the most amazing thing happens. They live longer than they're
Right.
supposed to. They live happier, and they're not afraid of dying, because
Right.
death is a transition, Martine.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's going from
I'm
point
with
A to
you.
point B. Uh,
Mhm.
we don't end because the body quits.
Right.
And if you can get, and I think that's been the key to my longevity with this
Mhm.
particular disease, is I have no fear of it.
Right. Right. Oh, that's good. That's so good. I agree with you, and I think I would have had this not happened to me, I would not have been. I mean, I feel the same way because of it. So this show has been fabulous, and I know we can talk on and on. But I thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out to Richard Rowland he's on Instagram, he's on Facebook, he's on Twitter occasionally. And and I encourage you all highly to grab his books, Unspoken Messages and A Glimpse Behind the Veil. You'll be happy you did. Thank you, everyone, so very much for being here. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martine. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martine and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martine is dedicated to supporting you right where you are, while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martine and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martineemmons.com and make your appointment today.